Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. So I have had a lot of you guys ask me about if I went to college, what I did after high school, if I graduated high school, which yes, I graduated high school. And a lot of you guys actually do know what I did after high school, and now you know about the title, and have asked me if you guys should pursue culinary school and if it's worth it and my experience going to it. And I have vaguely talked about it off and on throughout many social media interactions, but I have never actually just sat down and told my experience. And I don't know why, because I'm super nosy and I love hearing about people's like college experiences, because let's be honest, I'm not going to go to art school. I'm not going to go to hair school. I'm really fucking nosy. I want to hear what your experience was, and I just want to know because I'm curious about other people's careers. I don't really see a lot about culinary school on YouTube. They're out there, but I haven't really seen any videos on it, so I just wanted to give my experience. Before we get started, yes, I have proof. I went to Le Cordon Bleu in the United States. Funny enough, I'm pretty sure they're all like shut down now. Here's my lanyard. It says Le Cordon Bleu North America on it, and I had honor roll. I did exceptionally well. I had honor roll, and the little stars are attendance. I actually missed one attendance because I got freaking bronchitis. Now that I think about it, like I get bronchitis like every like other year, and I have for a long time. And I couldn't come to school because I didn't want to infect other people, especially because we're working with food. So I missed out on one star, and that still haunts me, even though I could probably just buy a little metal star and put it on there. But yeah, so yes, I did go. I have photos and stuff from my graduation. I could call my dad and get him to send me a photo of those, but if you don't believe I went, I'm kind of shook by how little you trust people online, but it's probably good. All I've learned is in the last like month is, you know what? It's probably good you don't trust people online. So before we actually get started into the schooling, I want to give you guys some backstory, because culinary school was not my first choice and really not what I wanted to do. I know people really enjoy my rambling. Welcome to the channel. So a little bit of lore for those of you who don't really know me. I grew up in a really small town. I grew up in not really like a super poor family, but we were like lower middle class. My family made enough money, but like we weren't like living in some gigantic nice house or, you know, very, very small town, humble upbringing. So whenever I turned 16, basically I had to choose what I wanted to do for the rest of my life. And I was not prepared for that. When I was 16, I didn't really get along with my parents at all. I was a very shitty little teenager, and I just didn't mesh well with my parents, and we didn't really talk that much. But on top of that, I was so fucking depressed. I was being bullied in school. This could be a whole different video, but teenagers should not be responsible for choosing what they're gonna do the rest of their life. Because at the time, I was not in the right mind, and I am not stupid, but I was so just mentally ill, had no resources, no family to talk to about all the stuff I was going through, being bullied, all this other stuff. And my grades started slipping so bad. And I think letting my grades slip, despite I am confident in the fact that if I would have focused on my grades and had proper like mental health resources when I was a teenager, I probably could have gotten scholarships and had good. I didn't even take my SATs because I was doing so bad. And no one cared, I guess. But yeah, I struggled, and between my junior and senior year, I just let my grades go to shit. I barely passed everything. I just barely passed just so I could graduate. And yeah, big regrets. If you are in high school, please just don't focus on anything except for like getting good grades. And I know a lot of people are like, high school doesn't matter, man. Like, we shouldn't force kids to like, you know, like focus on the grades, man. Like, there's more to life. you're going to miss out on a lot of scholarships and a lot of opportunities if you don't focus on your grades. Because I didn't want to go to culinary school. I wanted to study psychology. Whenever I was in middle school, I really wanted to focus on zoology, and then I realized that there is no way I could watch an animal be sick and emotionally handle it. But I was really interested in people. I was really interested in psychology, and we actually had classes in my high school to focus on psychology and stuff, and it was held by a gym teacher, and I actually read the books on my own time with no help from anyone, because the gym teacher would just give us the books because he wanted to do gym class bullshit and football and stuff. So he didn't teach us shit. So I read the books on my own and actually got A's in the class because I really love the subject. And whenever FAFSA time came around, I had my parents and stuff, everybody filled out everything, and really the only person I had to talk to was this counselor, who, God bless this woman. This woman was probably the only reason I didn't kill myself. This woman is a saint. I hope she's still doing well. But she had talked to me about the grades and everything, and she's honestly, she's your parents make a little bit too much money to qualify for grants and certain loans, so you are not really going to be able to go to a 4-year college unless they can pay this certain amount of money. And I thought about it, and my parents, they weren't open about struggling about money and stuff like that, but as an adult looking back, they did the best they could. So I felt like such a burden that I didn't even really talk to my parents about wanting to pursue a 4-year college and get a further education. I also believe that I don't know about a lot of my cousins and stuff, but I believe that I was one of the first people in my extended family to pursue a college thing. One of the first, probably not the very first, but one of the first. And I just felt so much guilt and felt such a burden that I was I'll try something else. And at the time, I was obsessed. I grew up being obsessed with Gordon Ramsay and Anthony Bourdain. Bless Anthony Bourdain. Anthony Bourdain's death was the first celebrity death ever that I've experienced where I actually mourned it. It felt like I lost someone extremely important in my life. It was really hard for me. But I was I really like cooking. I watch all these cooking things. I saw a lot of Gordon Ramsay stuff about culinary school. I'm maybe I can pursue that, is because that's cheaper, right? And it is cheaper. I want to point out that at this point, I didn't even know that you could just go and get a job. I didn't know that I didn't have to pursue schooling. Everything around me, everybody around me was talking about going to college and stuff. I had no idea that I could just work for a year or two and try to figure it out. I was I have to, as soon as I turn 18, I have to move out and I have to go to school and I have to move out of this small town. And I was so desperate to move out of this small town. I was so desperate to move out of this small town and move to a bigger city and have more opportunities, because I had just such a bad experience in my small town. I just didn't get along with a lot of people in the small town. I was a weird little goth kid. Now look at me now. Wow, has anything really changed? No. A few months before I graduated, we ended up going to Le Cordon Bleu, the closest one to us, which was in the next big city. And I went and I visited, and honestly, I had never in my life been inside of an industrial kitchen before, and I was just awestruck. I felt it felt so good to be in the environment. Everybody had on their chef whites, and everybody was walking around baking and stuff, and it was really cool. I got to tour all the 16-year-old me loved it. I got to tour all the kitchens. I got to talk to the chefs, and all the executive chefs have on the big French chef hats. Le Cordon Bleu is a French school. They teach traditional French culinary arts. And I loved it. And we sat down and my mom talked to like financial people and we figured it out. And they're like, well, here's the big thing. We have two different courses you can take. You can take a culinary side, which is traditional just cooking, or you can take a baking and pâtissier side, which is traditional like French baking and plated culinary desserts and stuff. And I was like, oh, I decided to pursue the baking and pâtissier side. The baking and pâtissier course was only like a little bit less than a year. I started in July of 2011 and I finished in May of 2012. Well, yeah, I ended up moving out of my parents' house the weekend I turned 18, and I ended up just sleeping on people I knew of's couches. Eventually, a girl I went to culinary school with let me sleep on her couch and pay a little bit of rent to live with her until I could get my own place. I was going to school 5 days a week for around 6 to 8 hours a day, so it was very difficult to have a job at the time. I managed to get a pizza job. I didn't like that. I didn't like that one bit. I can make story times about all my past jobs if you guys would like. I chose a pizza job and then I ended up working, doing baking stuff and working as a barista. So basically you have several classes that are around 6 weeks long. And the first one you do is basic like safety food certifications. There's a lot of like food safety certifications you have to get, a lot of hepatitis shots you gotta get, and you have to learn basic knife skills. I didn't really learn any advanced knife skills in my baking program because you really don't need them. I still think they should have taught them to us, to be honest. But we didn't really learn a lot of knife skills. Oh, I didn't even tell you. We got the chef whites and the like really sad hat that looks like you're bald. I hated those hats. And you have to like stuff all your hair up in them. Ugh. I hated it so much, but it keeps hair out of food, which is good. But yeah, you got like 3 sets of chef whites and with like an apron. And you also got a like knife roll kit. And we got like a chef's knife, a paring knife, a bread knife, the like honing thing when you see people like do that thing. You got one of those, and a lot of baking tools. You got like So after you finish your first like 6-week course of learning food safety, and you have to get certain certifications before you can continue the program. And it was wild because a lot of people dropped out at that point. And something else that was super just a lot for me. The people I was with, I was the youngest person in my class. I think there were a couple like 19-year-old girls. I was the youngest one. I was literally a baby. And there were people of varying ages, ethnicities I had never even seen in real life before because I grew up in such a sheltered small town. And it was really good for me to be around people from different backgrounds. There were like housewives. There were like these wealthy housewives that were just there to just learn a new skill. I want to open a bakery with my husband's money. And it was like, whoa, like what is going on? There were like a few like older men there that wanted to learn how to like make bread so they could open their own bakeries. There were a few like trust fund kids that grew up with like a wealthy, like not celebrity chef, but like a chef dad that like had opened restaurants and they were pressured into pursuing the baking course so they could help continue their dad's business. It was wild. A lot of people dropped out. Every single course, people dropped like fucking flies. It was interesting. I think a lot of people didn't know what they were getting into, and I also didn't. We also had to be in like It's like almost military. Like not as strict obviously, but you couldn't have nail polish, you couldn't have nails on. You had to your chef whites had to be ironed. They had to be clean. There couldn't be any stains on them. I used so much bleach to clean my clothes. You had to be presentable and look really nice. And I realized later on that they were kind of just grooming you to get ready for how strict it is to work in a kitchen. I'm probably not going to remember all the courses. I do remember our first actual course was learning basic pastry stuff, learning how to make pâte à choux, like this things that make like eclairs, learning how to make tarts, learning how to make things look nice, and how important it is to like make things like in pastry. It's really important for things to look pretty and taste good. Like it's in culinary in general, you want things to look nice, but in pastry they're like that better look fucking beautiful. We learned how to make like pastry cream. We learned how to like make caramel. A lot of really basic stuff that you're going to need to know how to do if you want a job to be a baker or a pastry chef. Our next course was bread, and boy, I love that class. I got super fat, and it worked out because I had no money. I couldn't really work even part-time. I was barely working part-time. So I ate so much bread. We had to learn the science behind bread, how to make like a starter, like a mother, like for sourdough, and we got to keep it as a pet. I wish I ended up losing my sourdough starter whenever I moved into my own apartment and moved out of this one girl's apartment that I went to culinary school with, and I miss him so much. I hope she kept him and took care of him, because when you make a sourdough, like you have the starter, and a lot of places like in New York and stuff, they have sourdoughs from like 100 years ago that they keep going. You keep feeding them. That's how you get that crazy good bread. You learn a lot of math and science behind how bread works and how yeast works and how to make bread without yeast and how to make pizza and stuff like that. And I love that class. It was very fun, very informative. I learned a lot of stuff. The next course was literally 6 weeks of learning lamination.
They ask you how you are, you just have to say that you're fine when you're not really fine, but you just can't get into it because they would never understand.
Lamination is the process of you make like a dough and you take cold butter and you flatten it and then you fold it a certain way and then you refrigerate it. And then you take it out, you flatten it, you fold it, and you refrigerate it. And you do that 5 million times until you want to blow your brains out. And it was a really cool skill to learn. I'm glad I learned it, but it was so freaking stressful. It was so stressful. Oh my goodness, the stress. The stress. I hated it. Everyone around me was just broken by it. It was not fun. It wasn't fun. That's how you make croissants, like pastry doughs and stuff. A lot of like French doughs are laminated. And boy, that was traumatizing. I feel like I'm missing a class, but I remember going into cake decorating class next, which pretty self-explanatory. We learned how to make fondant. We learned how to make different kinds of cakes, how to make different kinds of frostings. We fucked up a lot of shit. Making cake is a thing, that is for sure. And I spent way too much money on little tools that I lost and no longer have. And yeah, that's pretty much all that was. And then the last course that I can remember was plated desserts. And plated desserts are what you would think. They're those desserts, those small little like kawaii, like, or elegant desserts that you would get at a really nice restaurant. And that was stressful. I caught a pan on fire in that class because I let my we had gas burners, and I left my gas burner on, and yeah, my pan with caramel in it, like all the water evaporated out of it and it fucking blew up. That was cool. But yeah, pretty self-explanatory. We learned how to make a lot of like really small things. We learned how to take an entire sheet pan of cake and cut it down into like these little cute little things, and how to make things look really nice and plate them well, and how to keep presentation looking nice, and learned a lot. Pretty much all the school, I learned a lot, and it was interesting. It was fun for the most part. But now I'm going to tell you how the courses work. For the first like 5 weeks, you spend your time learning. Every day there's a new thing you learn. Like one day we learned how to make pastry cream, and then the next day we learned how to make the pie crust, and then the day after that we would put it all together and make like a cute little tart with fruit on it and make a little glaze on top of it. But the last week, you were given a recipe and you had to make it on your own without any guidance, and then they graded it in front of you, and it was a lot.
What's wrong? My mashed potatoes, they're too salty.
Like those like shows that they like, a lot of those shows where they like make a thing and then give it to like the chef, and then the chef judges it, and that's pretty much the last week of culinary school, was making different things and getting graded for it without any help, and you had to figure it out on your own. You weren't allowed to talk to other people. It was extremely stressful. For 18-year-old me, it was a lot. I don't test very well. We had actual paper tests as well at that week, where you had to like do different math or like know different terms and stuff. I just don't test well, and I got honed into my anxiety that week. That is for sure. Very, very stressful, very difficult. But I did it, and I still got honor roll grades and did very well, and I'm proud of baby me. So after you learn everything, this is the worst thing ever. After all these classes and stuff, the very last thing you do is you do an internship, and it was hard enough to get an internship somewhere, but they also they forced us to find an internship that would pay us. And I don't know if that was some sort of like legalities thing for them, but we had to be paid. And I'll do a whole video on my internship, because my internship was just hell. And yeah, I will do a whole video on that, because I met the worst chef I've ever met in my life. I met a lot of chefs I didn't care for. And yeah, we'll make a whole video about that. But you have to get through the internship. A lot of people like couldn't find internships and just dropped out. And I thought that was super fucked up, that they already went through the actual course, and you're going to not help them find something. Like anything. Like if we didn't have to be paid, I feel like it would have been way easier, because everyone loves some free labor, especially in kitchens. But a lot of people couldn't find like places to go, and they just dropped out and lost all their money and game over. That's really sad to think about looking back on it. I got very lucky. Because I was so young, I was treated like a child. I was legitimately treated like a child. A lot of the chefs were in their 40s and 50s. Most of them were just retired chefs, and they didn't want to do it anymore, and they wanted to teach. And a lot of them just treated me like a baby. And I got given my internship, and I was like, all right, that's fine. And I got some money out of it, and I was like, whatever. But it was so stressful. After that, they also spent some time helping us build resumes, how to build a proper resume, how to interview, which was really helpful. And at the end of it, I was offered a few job opportunities, but at this point I was working in coffee, and after my internship, I think I had like low-key some like PTSD or trauma from it. I got yelled at so much, and I was treated so badly that I decided not to take the offers. I decided not to take the offers I was given at the time because I was so stressed out and liked how chill and how stable just being a barista was. And I was a barista and did baking and stuff. And honestly, I ended up pursuing being a barista for a really long time, and then I tried to go back into baking, and it worked out for a while, and then the place shut down, and then I was fired and I couldn't find another job. And I had talked to other like chefs and stuff about it, and they were like, yeah, dude, like this is just how the industry is. Like if you notice, a lot of restaurants will pop up, they don't do well, they close down, find a different job. And the idea of that makes me want to die. Like not having a really like stable job. You really don't get paid a lot to be a chef. You work really long hours. The work is extremely labor intensive, very stressful, very, very stressful. It's just, for me, I don't think it was worth it. And I don't see myself pursuing it as a long-term career, especially with my anxiety and stuff. It just, you're not paid enough. You work too many hours. You pretty much live at work, and that's just not the life I want to live. A lot of chefs are alcoholics. A lot of them do a lot of drugs. A lot of them don't ever really see their families or their kids because they're constantly at work. And I didn't know. I genuinely didn't know what the culinary industry was until I pursued it and wasted a bunch of money on going to culinary school. And I won't necessarily say I regret it, but I just don't believe that we should be pressuring teenagers to choose what they're going to do for the rest of their life when they're so young, because I thought that culinary arts was, everybody's just like hanging out, bro. We're all just like making food, man. And it's not. It is 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 absolutely not what you think it is. And I didn't know any chefs. I learned everything I knew about culinary arts from TV. Bless TV. Bless the internet now, because you can find people like me to give you more information on that kind of stuff. I have a lot of people that ask me if it is worth it, or is it worth it to work your way up in a kitchen? And I have thought about this a lot. And like I said, I was given job opportunities. There were a couple girls in my class that took job opportunities working at hotels at Disney. One of them took a job opportunity right out of school, going to work on like I think it's a Disney cruise line. I could be wrong. She may have been like either choosing between Disney or the cruise line, but she ended up choosing the cruise line. There are people who get jobs right out of school, go straight to work, go. And to get into the culinary industry without that training, I don't really know a lot about it. And there are a lot of people who are like really nasty and mean to people that went to culinary school. There are so many chefs that are so like bitter. They're like, I had to work my way up as a dishwasher, and I just think it's fucking bullshit that these pansy ass Korean boo people get to fucking just come in and have a job. And it's a lot of those people are really bitter, but that's what you get for an education. You get better opportunities than people who don't have education. That's kind of how the United States works, unfortunately. But you can work your way up at restaurants and have a job in culinary arts. The thing is, it's harder. A lot of those jobs want you to have experience. And how do you get experience? A lot of people that work their way up as a dishwasher got opportunities from chefs that saw potential in them, or they just had connections. I saw a lot of people who said that they struggled and worked their way up and stuff, and it's like, bro, like your best friend is the head chef of this restaurant. He said he gave you a good review and was like, hey, give my man a job, please. And they said, hell yeah, we'll take another like sous chef. I don't give a fuck. Like, a lot of those people got opportunities that they don't realize a lot of people aren't going to get unless they know people. So it's hard to say. But I will also say a lot of culinary schools have shut down. I don't know what ones are open, but a lot of them are shut down. And I don't know why. My dad contacted me. He's like, did you see this stuff on TV about like Le Cordon Bleu, like you getting like retributions? I'm like, what is happening? I can't say. I went to culinary school at a very young age, and I will have that on my resume for the rest of my life to be able to use. And I really can't say. I have heard from people that went to a culinary program at community colleges, and they had a cheaper experience and less time and we're able to get jobs out of it. So that might be something to look into. But yeah, I can only give my experience. I do want to say that a lot of these chefs that are really, really bitter, are kind of just bitter. I don't really know what else to say. They're just like upset that people are being given opportunities for their education, and they think other people should have to go through what they went through. And I don't believe that. I don't think you should have to go through what other people went through as long as you have the proper education and skills necessary. But experience is the way to go. If you want to get into this field without pursuing a culinary education, you should probably start trying to find jobs in restaurants, jobs as cooks. There is a difference between a cook and a chef, and you want to start as a cook somewhere that isn't as high end. A lot of chefs get a job, like a lot of chefs started as a cook at like an Applebee's or a TJ Fridays or something like that. And it may not be what you want to do forever. You may not want to make eggs at Denny's forever, but a lot of them start there. They get experience for a couple years. They pursue something a little bit better, And then they're an executive chef. That takes more time, and that takes a lot of dedication, and you have to be very confident and know what you want and be very assertive about it. And I know a lot of people don't want to put in that work. So yeah. If you guys have any questions for me, definitely leave them down below. I asked some questions on Instagram, but I think this video is going to be long enough. So yeah, maybe I'll do a little like Q&A for people that want to ask culinary questions. But yeah, guys, thanks for watching this video. Make sure you check out my Twitter and my Instagram, and maybe become a pledge on Patreon, because we're always getting demonetized out here. And I hope you guys have a good day. And yeah, bye.